That's just completely wrong. These rule changes are not to help Devon, and Devon never asked for any of them.
This is pretty significant. We got 3 rule changes that are going to be implemented starting at the Vienna event this upcoming weekend. First one is that 2 slips in any round after that will always start in the strap. So some promotions have done 1 slip into the strap and then every round starts in the strap. So this will mean it'll have to be 2 slips and then every round after will go into the strap. And then the second rule change is that athletes who foul will stay at the table, which I think is great because sometimes an athlete will foul and then they'll just walk around in circles or go to like get chalk and delay the process of getting a grip, which can take a while and definitely bore some new viewers of the sport. For example, I remember this match with Dadikian and Kamil Jablonski, and after every little foul, they were just like walking around, walking back to their corner, just like strolling around. And it like for the viewing, for the pay-per-view, viewer, it just takes too long. So I think that is definitely a good implementation there. And then also 60-second rest in between round instead of 90 seconds is another thing they're going to be implementing, which I think is also a good thing because like Dexter had mentioned and Robert had mentioned, this is the same amount of time they have for UFC and boxing and a lot of other sports. It's pretty standard to have a minute. I know East versus West, like in its initial stages, had 2 minutes and then it was 90 seconds, but now it's going to be 60 seconds. I think that'll make things a lot more concise with the matches. Now, there is a very suggestive video here, or at least the titling from Arm Wrestling News' video. Did they do it to help Devon Larratt? And let's look at some of the comments because there's definitely a lot of controversy, but there always is, even regardless of what the rule change would be. But nothing will ever save time with Devon pulling, says this person. Now people have excuses finally when Vitali will lose. They cry when matches take too long. Then they cry when the rest time between the pull is shortened. Yeah, people are going to complain either way. Regardless of the reasons, it's announced 1 week before the contest. This is extremely irresponsible, especially if a puller has been training to keep out of the straps. What a joke. That has been proven to be untrue, as Luke Pulsher basically talked about that on the podcast, the Fix podcast from today, that the athletes were given about 3 or 4 week notice or so before the event that these were going to be the changes as well. You hear Robert talk about that as well here, that none of these rules were changed just for Devon's sake, for his advantage, or he wasn't in charge of pulling the strings or something regarding that. So let's listen to what Robert has to say about this.
I've already been getting calls and messages from arm wrestlers and friends saying, "Hey, I don't like the rule changes. This is not good. It's clearly, you're doing this because Devon is benefiting from it, and Devon has got you to do it." And that's completely false, 100% false. I didn't even talk to Devon about it. Devon never talked to me about it. Devon never even asked about the rule changes or asked to have the rules that we're changing. Devon didn't say a word about it. And
you heard it right there. Devon has no involvement. So the people who have Devonitis thinking he's responsible for that, it's not true.
I never told Devon before I talked to the other athletes. It was all at the same time. I notified everybody at the same time. Here are the proposed rule changes, and this is why. For viewability, for a bigger wider audience, we really need to do this, I believe. And
so, I personally think that's a great idea because the downtime can be super boring. Rather have just like bam, bam, bam. I think Mac has done a good job of that. There's some other promotions who do pretty fast-paced, not that much time in between matches and in between rounds as well, which I think makes it a lot more enjoyable to watch personally. So I'd like to see how this turns out for this event, and I'm pretty optimistic about that.
And anyway, so that's just completely wrong. These rule changes are not to help Devon, and Devon never asked for any of them. So it's strictly about viewability and taking our sport to a wider audience. That's 100%. There's no other reason. So the first rule change.
So we already went over the rule changes, but he just wanted to preface it by saying that. So I wanted to show that clip, but that definitely disproves this comment that it was just announced 1 week before the contest, yes, to the fans, but to the athletes, as Robert said, that was announced maybe 4 weeks or so, 4 or 5 weeks ahead of the event. So we have another comment here, 2 weeks left to the match, and they're highly impactful rule changes. Nothing to see here, move along and accept the new rules. Well, that was something that Robert proposed to the athletes many weeks ahead of time, and he said in this podcast here, which I'll put the link in the description, that he is open to hearing any objections from the athletes and taking it up for consideration before they implement that. But it looks like at this point that is going to go forward with those 3 rule changes. So let me know what you think about those, and will that impact the match between Devon and Vitali? Let me know in the comment section, guys. Also, if you're going to buy the pay-per-view, make sure to use code TOM to help support my channel, and also hit like and subscribe for more arm wrestling content.